Good morning. Welcome back to online teaching. Yesterday we have seen about the blood coagulation and we have seen about the deficiency disease, that is the thalassemia, and we have seen everything about the blood in 9th class, and we have continued in the 10th class, so that we have seen clearly about the transport system. In the transport system we have seen about the heart, blood vessels and blood. So everything you know about the blood, except you don't know about the positive and negative character of the blood. So that we'll see today. So in 9th class, you have learned that 4 types of blood groups are present in the human beings. So today we'll see about the blood groups. So here you know that we have 4 types of blood groups. The human beings, they have 4 types of the blood groups. So here there are A, B, AB and O. So people with A blood group, they have antigen A on their red blood cells and they have antibody B in the plasma. So antigens are present on RBC, antibodies are present in the plasma. The A blood group have A antigen and B antibody in the plasma. People with B blood group will have B antigen and A antibody in the plasma. People with AB blood group, they have both antigens on RBC and they don't have any antibodies. When we see O blood group, they don't have antigens on the RBC and they have both AB antibodies in the plasma. And along with that, when you see your blood report, they will be giving either the A positive or B positive, they will be giving. So that positive nature will be getting to the blood by the presence of RH antigen. People with RH antigen on RBC, they are called positive. They are called RH positive. So that's why we will be calling it as A positive. If the people, they don't have RH antigen in their blood, so they are called RH negative. The scientists, they discovered these RH antigen in the rhesus of the monkey, hence they kept the RH factor to the positive and negative nature. So here, whenever RH positive blood is transfused to the RH negative, so there we observe the destroying of red blood cells, so that it leads to the death of a person. So now let us see, when RH positive person marries RH negative woman, during the delivery, if the baby is RH positive and there is a chance of mixing blood of mother and child, so that the RH mother blood will have antibodies against the RH antigen. So that is the mother is negative. When a little bit of RH antigen is goes to the mother blood, so mother blood will be developing the antibodies against RH antigen. And during the second child, first child don't have any problem. When during the second child, large amount of RH antibodies will be going to the child's blood and it leads to the death of the child. So in order to prevent that, now we have a recent development. So before the delivery itself, the baby's blood is completely removed and they are given with a fresh blood. Those don't have the RH antibodies. So another method in order to save the child is the mother is given injection not to be getting default antibodies in the blood. That is, the mother will not develop the harmful RH antibodies, so that if it goes to the child also, child will not be died. So next, the other thing, before delivery itself, the child can be transfused with a blood, so that blood won't have these positive antibodies. So this is the problem only if RH negative woman marries the RH positive woman. So now there is a chance of protecting the child from erythroblastis pitosis. So that is nothing but because of the RH antibodies, there is a problem for the woman. So next, we'll be seeing after this, that is complete, we have learned about the blood coagulation and we have seen about the blood grouping. So once again we'll see, if the people will have the RH antigen, then we'll be calling it as positive. If they don't have RH antigen, we'll be calling it as negative. So RH blood should not be transmitted to the RH negative because it may lead to the death of the red blood cells. Next, continue the next part of our transport system, that is transportation in plants. So we'll be continuing about the transportation in plants. So here, anyhow, we'll learn that animals have a well-developed transport system. So that is, our transport system have heart, blood vessels and blood. So they have the capable of supplying glucose, oxygen and water to every cell, and the cell will undergo the metabolic activities. Then after the metabolic activities, waste will be produced. So the transport system have the capable to remove these waste material out of the body. So how a well-developed transport system is present in the animals. So we'll also see a well-developed transport system in plants. So in that we have seen about the Van Helmont experiment. So the Van Helmont, he was the first person to tell that the roots will absorb water and mineral salts from roots. The water and mineral salts will be supplied to all the body parts. And you know that, so the plants have vascular bundles. When we observe the vascular bundles have two types of cells, that is xylem and phloem. So that we learned in the 9th class about the xylem and phloem. So when we see the xylem conducts the water. When we see the phloem conducts the food material. So xylem will be present inside the stem. When we see outer part of the stem will contain the phloem. When we see the root system have outer part will have the xylem and inner we observe the phloem. So mainly when we see clearly the transport system will be carried out in the plants mostly by the two cells, that is the xylem and phloem, plays a major role in transporting the substance. Xylem helps for the conduction of water from root system to the different parts of the plant. Phloem will be helpful to transport the food material that is prepared from the leaves to the various parts of the plant. So now let us see how the water and minerals along with the food will be transported in the plants in detail. So before going to that is how the food is transferred and how the water and minerals are transferred. Now let us see how the root system of the plant is present. So when we observe the plant contains the roots, the main root, and it have a tiny hair-like structures called the root hairs. These root hairs penetrates into the soil which absorbs the water and mineral salts. So anyhow, by the process of diffusion and osmosis will be helpful for transfer of the water in the plants. Let's see in detail how the root hairs will be absorbing the water. So now let us see how to observe these root hairs. So for that we have a small experiment we'll be doing. So first one it is to observe the root hairs. Observation of root hairs. Observation of the root hairs. So just a delicate root hair is taken from the roots of the plant, and these root hairs are kept on the slide. Then what you do with the underside, you squash the root hairs so that the cells will be loosened and you can clearly see under the microscope. Anything to see under the microscope, that should be very thin. And place 1 drop of water on this root hair and keep the cover slip on the top of the slide. So how you have prepared the preparation of this slide in the 9th class, in the same way we will be taking one glass slide. So these on the glass slide will be placing roots, and the roots are squashed with the underside by pressing. Then add 1 drop of the water so that the roots will be attached to the glass slide. Then cover this with the cover slip. Then place under the microscope. Then you can observe the root hair. You can observe the LS of the root hair, how the water will be entered into the plant. So here, so we will see the LS of, when this slide is kept under the microscope, we can see the root hair. Now let's see the parts of the root hair. Before we are seeing the mechanism or the process how the water is absorbed. So these are the soil particles and it is the root hair. And when we see the root hair contains the cell wall. You know that every plant cell outer it will have the cell wall. And inside, anyhow, you know that it is having the cytoplasm. This cytoplasm is filled with the cell sap, and the place in the root hair will be calling it as vacuole. These root hair will be attached to the epidermal cell. So epidermal cell will be continuing with the neighboring cell and to the cortex cell, like that one cell to the other, until the roots it will be continuing with the stem. So now let us see how the water will be entering into the plant. So here, when you pour the water to the plant, so large amount of the water will be poured to the plant. So here, the soil particles dissolves into the water and it forms the soil solution. It forms the soil solution. So that soil solution is dilute. So the soil particles are mixed with the soil and it results in the formation of soil solution, and it is dilute. Dilute is nothing but it contains more amount of the water, and these will be surrounding the root hair. So the soil solution will be surrounding the root hair. When we see inside the root hair, it contains a fluid called the cell sap. So it contains a fluid called cell sap. The concentration of the cell sap is high. The concentration of the cell sap is high. As a result, this soil solution slowly comes into the cell sap by the process of osmosis. Here, one important thing here is the cell wall acts like a semi-permeable membrane. The cytoplasm lining the cell wall. The cytoplasm lining the cell wall will be acting like a semi-permeable membrane. Hence, the molecules move, water molecules move from the soil to the inside the cell sap. As the water enters into the cell sap, this fluid will be increased in the root hair. As a result, the concentration will become less when compared to the neighboring cell. As a result, by the process of osmosis, it will be entering into the cortex cell. So, epidermal to the cortex cell to the neighboring cell, and then it comes to the upper part it moves to the upper part of the plant, that is the stem. So now when we see the plant structure, it has the roots, and the roots are connected by the tiny stem. And how the water will be supplied in the stem after entering into the root hair. So now the water has entered into the root hair, from root hair to the main root to it enters to the stem. Here, xylem will be helpful. So I told that the outer portion of the stem contains the phloem, and inner it will have the xylem. Whereas when we see in the roots, outer portion will have the xylem and inner will be having the phloem. Here reverse we observe xylem will be present inside. So the soil solution from the root hair, it will be entered into the stem by the pressure created by the roots. So that we call it as root pressure. As many roots are present in the roots, it creates a pressure on the walls of the xylem vessels and helps to move the water to upper parts of the plant. So here, because of the molecular attraction in the xylem vessels, a continuous column of water will be formed in the stem and water will be sent to the upper parts of the plant. So that is, here the water is sent to the plant from roots first by root pressure, and xylem vessels will be helpful for conducting the water to the stem. And a continuous column of water forms in the stem, which will be helpful to transport the water to the upper plants. So here in the same way, how the water enters, in the same way, here we will also observe the conduction of minerals. So minerals are also necessary for the plant for growth. So it is necessary how we need the nutrients, in the same way plants also need the nutrients. So especially when we pour the water in the soil, the salts which are present in the soil will be dissolved in the water. Now let us take the example of NaCl and MgSO4. They splits into Na plus and Cl minus, Mg plus SO4 minus ions, and then it enters into the cytoplasm of the root hair. So here the energy present in the root hair is also helpful for conduction of these mineral salts. Along with the water, the mineral salts also comes from the root hair to the epidermal cell, to the cortex cell, then neighboring cell, and then it will be coming to the xylem vessels. From xylem vessels, it will be going where the plant requires the growth. So that is, along with the conduction of water, mineral salts also will be traveling in the plant for better growth of the plant, and it is necessary for proper growth in the plants. So xylem vessels and root pressure is enough to send the water in the small plants like herbaceous plants. In herbaceous plants, root pressure is enough to supply the water to different parts. So now let's do a small experiment to observe that root exerts the pressure. Root exerts the pressure, that we'll see. Now I am telling that as the plant root system contains many hairs, these hairs at once send the water to the main root, that it creates the pressure to pull the water towards the xylem, and that xylem will be helpful for conduction of water to outer all the parts of the plant. So now let us see whether roots exert the pressure or not. So our aim of the experiment is pressure is exerted by the plant, or we observe the root pressure in the plant. Roots exert pressure, help for conduction of the water. So here, for that, what we will be doing? We will be taking a well-watered potted plant. Well-watered potted plant is taken, and what you do? You cut the stem. So you have taken a well-watered plant. So 1 inch above this root system you cut, and now you will get this portion. You will be getting these roots. Along with that, a little bit of the stem is taken. So you have cut the stem just above the soil, 1 inch top will be taking a stem. To the stem, what we will be doing? We will be attaching a rubber tube. Attach a rubber tube to this stem, and then you attach a glass tube to this rubber tube. See that it is firm enough so that no water escapes from the outside. So first we have taken a stem. We have taken the stem. The stem is 1 inch above you have cut it. Then we place the rubber tube. So on the rubber tube we place the glass tube. We place the glass tube. So pour water into this glass tube. Pour the water into the glass tube, and maintain the level. How much level? Now let us take the level of the water in the glass tube is M1. So leave it for 3 to 4 hours. After 3 to 4 hours, we observe the water level in the glass tube has increased from M1 to M2. From this it is clear that the root has exerted the pressure in the water that made the water to increase in the glass tube. From this it is clear that root exerts the pressure and pushes the water in lower plants. So root pressure and xylem vessels will be helpful for conduction of water in small herbaceous plants. So when we see in large plants, so nearly, now when we take eucalyptus plant, it will be very tall. So in that, these xylem root pressure and the xylem vessels, anyhow, they play a role for conducting the water. Along with that, we also observe transpiration process to conduct the water to upper parts of the plant. So up to here, now let us take up to a certain part, xylem vessels and root pressure will be sending the water. To send to the upper part of the plant also undergoes the process of transpiration, which creates a transpiration stream and which pulls the water to upper parts of the plant. Before going to the transpiration process, how it occurs, now a small experiment what you did in the 9th class that we'll be seeing. Here, we will be doing an experiment on the transpiration. So take a plant and cover one leaf with the polythene cover. One leaf with the polythene cover. Leave it for whole the night. Next day morning when we observe the droplets in the polythene cover. We observe the droplets of the water in the polythene cover. So that is, the plants undergone the process of transpiration. So that transpiration, because of the transpiration, we observe the droplets in the water, that is in the polythene cover. So these transpiration process will be helpful for the formation of a continuous stream of water molecules to the upper part. Now let us take the water has come to up to this leaf. So some amount of the leaf will be evaporating the water into the surroundings. Surroundings, it will be leaving the water. So it creates a pull, transpiration push to the upper plant. So then it goes to this leaf. Some amount of the water will be evaporated into the atmosphere. And it creates a push to go to this leaf. So in this way, 98% of the water will be evaporated into the atmosphere. Only 2% will be transferred from lower to upper part. So from this it is clear that in the tall plants, transpiration process plays a major role to supply water and mineral salts. So this is how the water will be conducted in the plants. Now let us see the another important plant, how the food is transported in the plant. How the food is transported in the plant. So that is, by the starting of this lesson I told that phloem sieve tubes will be helpful for conduction of food. So when we see the plant, the plant it has the leaves. The leaves will prepare the food material. So the leaf prepares the food material. From the leaf, it has to be transported to various parts of the plant. And scientists, they took the help of aphids. Aphids are nothing but a small insects. Through this experiment with the aphids, they have clearly confirmed that phloem sieve tubes will be helpful. Sieve tubes will be helpful for transporting the food material from leaf to other parts of the plant. So what experiment that they did, we'll see. So they have observed the small plants, small tender plants attached with the small insects. So now let us see the structure of the plant in clear. So that is, we observe the leaves, and this plant is attacked by the small insects called the aphids. So these aphids, the small tender plants attached with several small insects called the aphids. These aphids will insert a needle-like structure into the stem, and it is taking the food. So from where it is taking the food that the biologists or scientists observed. So then they killed the aphids. And still this proboscis is inserted into the stem. Proboscis. The beak-like structure that is present in the aphids, it is called the proboscis. From this proboscis, it is sucking the plant juice. So up to where these has inserted that they observed. They observed that these proboscis is inserted up to the phloem sieve tubes where they get the ready-made glucose. There we observe the ready-made glucose and amino acids are present in the stem that is absorbed by the aphids. So from this it is clear that these phloem sieve tubes are very tiny, so their function cannot be seen clearly. So that's why they took the help of the aphids. The aphids has inserted the proboscis till the phloem sieve tubes and taking the ready-made food material from the sieve tubes. So from this it is clear that phloem conducts the food from stem to different parts of the plant. So from leaf we prepare the food material. From leaf it goes to the stem. As in the stem, phloem sieve tubes will be helpful to send the food material either to the root system or to upper parts of the plant. So next experiment that was done by the scientists. So that they have taken one stem. That is one large plant is taken. So from that large plant, they have removed the bark. They removed the bark around the stem. The other experiment in order to confirm that phloem only conducts the food material. So now let us take this stem of a plant and you remove the bark around the stem. Remove the bark around the stem where the phloem only presents. So I have removed around the stem, I have removed the bark. So now we observe the woody structure inside and around the stem I have removed the bark. So leave it for some days. After 3 or 4 days when we observe the growth on the top of the section. That is nothing but where you remove the bark, above that we observe the growth. There the swollen stem is present. Where when we observe there will be no growth here. There is a growth here. Growth ring is observed above the surface. There is no growth is observed in the below region. In the below region. From this it is clear that as you remove the phloem tubes, phloem in the stem, it is not conducting the food towards the downwards, and that's why we don't observe any growth. So growth is seen on the top because the phloem cells are present. It has conducted up to here itself. We remove the phloem here, so that's why it does not conduct the food down. So that's why we didn't find any growth. If you leave the plant like that only, the plant dies because the down part won't get the sufficient food. So that's why the plant will die. So from these two experiments, that is one by proboscis of the aphids and second one by bark of the stem. It is clear that phloem will be helpful for conduction of food material. Xylem helps for the conduction of water and minerals. Phloem will be helpful for the conduction of food material. So from this it is confirmed that the two cells present in the plant will be helpful for conduction of both water and mineral salts, and also phloem conducts the food material. And when we observe in the forest or in agriculture fields, some animals will be eating only the bark. So that is when we take the example of wolves, rabbits, these causes damage to the crops in the agriculture fields. When we see the wolves eat away the external bark of young plants. Young plants bark will be eaten by the wolves. And rabbits, wolves is nothing but a type of rat. Okay, rabbits, when we observe, it will be eating the older plants bark. Older plants bark will be eaten by these rabbits. And as the bark is removed around the surface, the phloem cells cannot conduct the food to the root system and the plants will die. That it causes economic loss to the farmers. That is, the plant will die and he won't get the yield. So, wolves, rabbits, and along with that, when we see grey squirrels, are the enemies for the farmers. So, these also causes great loss to the casuarina plants. So these plants roots, that is above the root system, the bark is eaten by the grey squirrels. So these grey squirrels these three animals are enemies to the farmers, which is causing great economic loss to the farmers. So that's why when they are growing sapling of the plants, they will be keeping wire nets around the plants. Wire nets are placed around the plants to protect from these animals, and along with that, so these wire nets, along with that, they also release the predators. Predators are nothing but the animal which kill the other animal and live. So the predators are released into the forest or the agriculture fields in order to control these animals, like foxes, hawks, wolves, badgers. Some animals are released into the agriculture fields to kill these animals, so that natural enemies, they are the natural enemies, they kill that animals, they do not cause any harm to the plants, and the agricultural fields will be natural and it gives a good yield to the farmers. Thank you.